With a few days to spend in Southern California after a work trip to San Diego, the area's scenic highlights were an obvious draw. But with the nearly constant coastal overcast, something the locals refer to as June gloom, the vistas at Torrey Pines and La Jolla, while pretty, seemed, well, under the weather. And if it weren't enough to have the evening light quickly dropping, La Jolla's pelicans did their best to drive the point home. Still, for anyone with the proper, shall we say, training, there were alternatives. The San Diego Trolley, a pioneer system on what has been a light rail renaissance in over 20 U.S. cities, fields its fleet of signature red cars over 3 lines radiating from downtown. All 3 have stops at or near the beautifully maintained former Santa Fe depot, with Amtrak and commuter trains steps away. While most of the system uses its own right-of-way, some downtown trains run in the streets where the articulated cars seem to slither over the pavement. Patrons are encouraged to take pride in their system, although it's probably a stretch to say these bridesmaids are proudly showing off its colors. And, while service is frequent, waiting for a train still leaves time for, well, you get the picture. On certain days, passengers with a taste for nostalgia or even simple curiosity may ride downtown in this streetcar built in 1946. Car 530 has been lovingly restored, albeit with the necessary operational compromises of a wheelchair lift up front and a rather ungainly pantograph on the roof to properly engage today's overhead wires. Still, that classic style, and what are for some of us those old familiar sounds, win out in the end. What constitutes classic style is, of course, open to interpretation, but the San Diego Model Railroad Museum seems to offer a number of classic Western-themed displays. Most impressive is its evocative HO-scale representation of the rail route south of Bakersfield through the Tehachapi Mountains, complete with the famous Tehachapi Loop. While the loop here scales only about 75% as large in diameter as the real thing, the scene definitely captures the feel of the original. Here, in a single train, 10 locomotives distributed throughout move 80 cars downgrade in a masterful recreation of mountain railroading. Running HO trains through miniature landscapes is one thing, but in Cajon Pass, 2 hours north of San Diego, it's no small matter. It can take 20,000 horsepower or more to get a long train here to Cajon's summit, fighting miles of upgrade in full throttle at what seems like walking speed. And that's what we've come to see. Cajon Pass proper is a notch in the mountains created by the movement of the San Andreas Fault, heavily excavated to provide a path for the railroad. But in popular usage, the name applies as well to the scenic canyon and steep railroad grades that lie to the west. The line's curves, engineered to ease the grade, make it popular with photographers. Here we see a single train doubled back on itself twice. But those curves add significantly to the rolling resistance of trains already handicapped by the uphill climb. So, just as on the model at the museum, locomotives are often added to the rear of the train, and or the middle, to help compensate. It's extra work for the railroads, but for the rest of us, it's just part of the show. And for those of us who enjoy trains, show is the appropriate word. ship after ship unloading containers at the port of Los Angeles, the two railroads who use the pass keep rather busy hauling them all to markets across the country. Along with the cement, grain, chemicals, autos, and general freight that for so long was their mainstay business. We did say two railroads. The three tracks here at Cajon Summit belong to what was once the Santa Fe, but which, since a 1995 merger, has been the Burlington Northern Santa Fe, or BNSF, whose locomotives wear this bright orange. Of course, some of us, accidentally on purpose, still use the famous old name. The Union Pacific, or UP, with its yellow diesels, has its own line up the hill to the right. And it's not uncommon to see Santa Fe and UP running side by side, as shown here with trains of both railroads heading west from the summit down toward LA. We'll end our brief excursion at Sullivans Curve, a scenic highlight of the Cajon area, several miles down from the summit, and named for a photographer who made many railroad images here in the mid-20th century. With the Santa Fe main on the inside of the curve, and UP outside and slightly above, it's as fine a place as any to watch the trains tackle the hill. Oh, and just to confuse things, UP trains do sometimes run on the Santa Fe. It's worth noting that trains like this one, headed down, although braking rather than pulling, are working as hard against gravity as those headed up, and are operated at similar speeds to keep safely in control. Still, if by now you've grown weary of trains just plodding and squealing by, we can use time-lapse mode to fix that. It's our last afternoon in California. At the risk of overkill, we capture a few more trains at the curve, then, reluctantly, hike to the rental car for the drive back to San Diego. But we have no complaints. From trolleys to an HO scale Tehachapi, from Cajon Summit to Sullivans Curve, it's been a great shoot. Thanks so much for having a look.